Jack Turner woke before the sun most mornings, his alarm ringing at 05:30, which he always thought of as 5:30 in the morning. He moved quietly through the dim apartment so his 8-year-old daughter Emily could sleep a little longer before school. The place was small, 2 bedrooms tucked into a weathered building with thin walls and a rent bill that swallowed more than half his paycheck. On the kitchen table sat a stack of envelopes: rent, utilities, medical bills, and a reminder for Emily's dance classes. Jack never ignored the last one, no matter how tight money became. She loved to dance, and he wanted her to have at least one bright corner in her life. He had served as a Marine years ago, carrying himself with the quiet discipline that training never left behind. Now, instead of battlefields, he faced 3 jobs that kept food on the table: night security at an office building, delivery work in the mornings, and handyman gigs on weekends. His shoulders ached from long hours, and the lines on his face made him look older than his 36 years. But he never let Emily see how tired he was. When she looked at him, he wanted her to see strength, not weariness. Their evenings together were the best part of his day, sitting at the small table, helping with homework, or sharing a cheap meal he managed to stretch from leftovers. Emily would chatter about school, about a new routine she learned in dance class, or about a drawing she wanted to finish. Jack listened with patience and warmth, knowing those moments were what kept him going when the world seemed determined to grind him down. Across the city, Isabella Drake lived in a world built on privilege and silence. She was the daughter of Richard Drake, one of the most powerful names in technology, a man whose wealth could open any door. Her childhood had been spent in glass towers and behind tinted windows, with private tutors, galas, and luxury trips. Yet, for all the sparkle, there had been an emptiness. Friends measured in business connections, conversations centered on profit margins, and affection replaced with scheduled calls. In search of something real, Isabella had made a choice that startled those closest to her. For 3 months, she had been working nights as a waitress in a roadside diner off the interstate. She wore a simple uniform, tied her hair back, and introduced herself only as Bella. The work was tiring, her feet sore by the end of an 8-hour shift, but she found an odd satisfaction in it. For the first time, she spoke with truck drivers, construction workers, and night nurses. They told stories without worrying about headlines or stock prices. She learned to pour coffee without spilling, to smile in ways that weren't rehearsed, and to laugh at jokes that had no strategic value. She could have been at board meetings or charity banquets, but instead, she stood behind a counter with a coffee pot in hand, savoring a life that felt honest. Yet she carried the secret of her true identity carefully, aware that exposure would shatter this fragile experiment. On one side of the city was a worn flannel shirt hanging by the door of a cramped apartment, the fabric softened by years of use. On the other was a tailored wardrobe behind glass in a mansion where silence echoed down wide hallways. 2 lives. One of relentless struggle and one of hidden isolation, moving on separate tracks. But fate has a way of bending paths, and soon those 2 worlds would meet in a place neither expected. And when they did, nothing in their lives would ever be the same. The rain fell in steady sheets against the neon lights of the roadside diner, turning the glass into a blur of color and shadows. Inside, the air smelled of coffee, bacon grease, and wet pavement. Jack Turner sat in the corner booth, his shoulders slouched, nursing a cup of coffee that cost just over $1. He was bone-tired, the kind of exhaustion that came from working 3 jobs and still wondering how the bills would get paid. The clock above the counter showed 12:45, which he thought of as 12:45 in the morning, a reminder that in less than an hour, he needed to drag himself across town for another security shift. He sipped slowly, trying to stretch out these few quiet minutes before the grind began again. Across the room, Isabella Drake moved gracefully between tables in her waitress uniform. She carried plates with practiced balance, filled coffee cups without spilling, and thanked customers with the polished calm of someone raised on etiquette. But here, in this diner, she was not Isabella Drake, the billionaire's daughter. She was Bella, a waitress who worked late nights for tips and the truth of human connection. To most of the regulars, she was just another young woman paying her dues, though Jack had noticed her poise before, the subtle way she carried herself, as if she came from somewhere very different than this place. The bell above the door chimed. Victor Sloan entered with 2 men at his side. His presence shifted the air immediately. His suit looked like it had never seen a wrinkle. His watch gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and the cologne he wore clashed with the diner's simple smells. Victor was the kind of man who thrived on power. He spotted Isabella instantly, his lips curling into a smile that was more of a sneer. "Well, well," he said, loud enough for the entire diner to hear. "The princess of the tech world, playing dress-up as a waitress. How long do you think this little game will last?" His associates chuckled, settling into a booth near the front. Isabella straightened, her expression calm but her eyes tense. She asked what they wanted to order, her voice professional, as if he were no different than any other customer. But Victor leaned closer, taunting her, asking if her father knew she was slumming it, if she thought pretending to be poor would make her noble. His words were sharp, designed to cut. Then he reached out and grabbed her wrist. The grip was tight, his fingers digging into her skin. Isabella's composure wavered for just a moment, her eyes flashing with fear before she steadied herself again. Around the diner, people shifted uncomfortably. A truck driver buried his face in a newspaper. A young couple slid out the door. No one wanted to get involved. Jack set down his cup. The sound of porcelain against the saucer seemed louder than it should have been. He rose slowly, his steps deliberate as he crossed the floor. His voice was calm, almost conversational, as he spoke. "I think the lady asked you to let go." Victor looked him up and down, taking in the worn jeans, the old boots, the tired face. He laughed, mocking. "This doesn't concern you. Go back to your coffee before you get hurt." Jack didn't flinch. When a man puts his hands on a woman who doesn't want it, it becomes everyone's business. His voice carried a quiet weight that made Victor's associates shift uneasily. Victor motioned to one of his men, a tall, younger guy who stepped forward, reaching for Jack's shoulder. The next moment happened so fast, most of the diner didn't see it clearly. Jack pivoted, his hand catching the man's wrist, twisting with practiced efficiency. In one smooth motion, the man was bent over the table, his arm pinned in a hold that promised pain if he resisted. The second associate froze mid-step, caught by the intensity in Jack's steady gaze. Jack's voice stayed calm. "Nobody needs to get hurt. Let her go." Victor's smirk faltered. He released Isabella's wrist, his face flushing with humiliation. Isabella stepped back, rubbing the red marks on her skin, her breath caught between fear and gratitude. The diner was silent except for the hum of the lights and the rain against the windows. For the first time in a long while, someone had stood up for her, without calculating profit or power. She looked at Jack, this worn man with calloused hands, and felt something shift. The world she had always known and the world he came from had just collided, and nothing about it felt ordinary. The video appeared online less than 24 hours after the diner incident. It was short, grainy, and edited to tell a false story. The clip started at the moment Jack Turner pinned Victor Sloan's associate against the table. The crucial beginning, where Victor grabbed Isabella's wrist, had been cut away. The caption beneath it read, "Violent veteran attacks, innocent businessman." Within hours, it spread across social media, shared by local news blogs, and gossip sites hungry for clicks. By the next evening, Jack's phone would not stop buzzing with notifications, each headline painting him as unstable, dangerous, a threat to the community. His night security boss called at 1900, which he thought of as 7 o'clock in the evening, apologizing but saying the company could not risk liability. He was officially terminated. The handyman service he worked for suddenly had no assignments. His delivery route supervisor told him to take a break until things cooled off. Clients and neighbors whispered. At Emily's school, other parents pulled their children a little closer when Jack arrived to pick her up. He saw Emily notice it too, her bright face clouding with confusion as she asked softly if Daddy was in trouble. Victor's media machine kept pushing. Stories surfaced about Jack's past, his PTSD treatment after Afghanistan, stripped of all context and twisted into proof that he was unstable. A bar fight years ago resurfaced, used as evidence that he had always been violent. No one mentioned the years of steady work, or the fact that he had not had an incident since treatment began. Jack sat at the kitchen table one night, the bills stacked high in front of him, the ticking clock reminding him how quickly life was unraveling. Emily drew at the other end of the table, humming to herself, pretending not to notice the weight pressing down on her father. He forced a smile when she looked up, hiding the despair that threatened to spill out. The injustice burned. He had done nothing more than protect a woman who needed help, and now he was being buried under lies and power. Still, as he sat there staring at the numbers on the overdue notices, a flicker of resolve remained. He had done the right thing. And no matter how hard Victor tried to destroy him, that truth could not be erased. Isabella Drake could not stand by and watch Jack Turner's life collapse under Victor Sloan's smear campaign. Every news outlet seemed determined to paint him as the villain, yet she knew the truth. He had stood up when no one else had, and now he was paying the price. Determined to act, she called in a favor from a former classmate who connected her with Rachel Collins, a young attorney who had built a reputation for defending veterans pro bono. Rachel was sharp, relentless, and unafraid of powerful men. After hearing the details, she agreed to take Jack's case, her eyes burning with the kind of conviction Isabella had rarely seen in her world. Word of Jack's stand at the diner spread quietly through back channels, and soon a truck driver who had been there came forward. His 12-year-old daughter had seen the viral clip and asked him why the man who helped someone was being called dangerous. He admitted to Rachel that guilt had eaten at him for staying silent, and he was ready to testify about what he had seen that night. Other voices followed, each one a thread in a growing fabric of truth. Meanwhile, Isabella began visiting Jack's small apartment more often. She brought dinners she had cooked herself, though she wasn't great in the kitchen, and Emily laughed at her attempts to bake. The little girl warmed to Isabella quickly, tugging her hand to show drawings or asking questions about what it was like growing up in a mansion. Emily even drew a picture of the three of them together, taping it proudly to the refrigerator alongside her schoolwork. Jack tried to act indifferent, but he felt something shift in the quiet moments when Isabella helped Emily with homework or listened to her stories with genuine interest. Jack's pride made him wary. He hated the idea of being a burden, hated more that his daughter might get attached to someone who could walk away. Yet, he saw the way Emily's face lit up when Isabella was around, and he could not deny the gratitude he felt. With Rachel building a defense, Isabella standing firm beside him, and witnesses finally ready to speak, the tide began to turn ever so slightly. One evening, as they sat together in the small living room, Jack looked at both women. His voice was low but steady, as he admitted he could not win this battle alone. For the first time since the nightmare began, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they stood a chance if they faced it together. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, a fragile but undeniable alliance forged in truth. trust, and the hope of justice. The Drake Tech Annual Summit had always been a spectacle. Every year, the company unveiled a new breakthrough in front of journalists, investors, and employees from across the world. This year, the convention hall was filled with more than 800 people, cameras flashing, the buzz of anticipation echoing under the high ceiling. Jack Turner sat near the back, invited reluctantly by Isabella, who insisted he should be there. His heart was heavy. In recent days, Victor Sloan's harassment had crossed a line. Photos of Emily had appeared online, snapped from a distance as she walked to school. Jack felt the old protective instinct sharpen into anger, but he stayed silent, waiting for the moment when truth might finally fight its way to the surface. The lights dimmed, and Richard Drake walked onto the stage. Tall, silver-haired, commanding. He looked every bit the titan of industry. The crowd hushed, expecting a speech about innovation and the unveiling of a new cloud platform. Instead, Richard paused at the podium, his gaze sweeping the room. He spoke not about technology, but about integrity. His voice carried a weight that startled those who knew him only as a businessman. He said there comes a time when money and power mean nothing if a person lacks the courage to do what is right. Murmurs rose from the audience. Investors glanced at one another, confused, checking their watches as if waiting for the real presentation to begin. Then the massive screens behind him flickered. Security footage filled the display, cleaned and sharpened to reveal every detail. It showed the diner on that rainy night. Victor Sloan's hand clamped around Isabella's wrist. Her face tightened in pain. Customers looked away. And then Jack stood, calm and steady, stepping forward with measured confidence. The audience gasped. They watched as Jack restrained Victor's man, never raising his voice, never striking first. The truth that had been twisted online was now undeniable. Victor, seated near the front, shifted in his chair, his face draining of color. The crowd turned toward him, whispers spreading like wildfire. Journalists raised their phones, snapping pictures and recording. The doors at the side of the stage opened, and Lieutenant Harris, a veteran officer with 20 years on the force, walked in with 2 uniformed cops. He approached Victor with a clear voice that carried across the hall. "Victor Sloan, you are under arrest for assault, harassment, and intimidation." The flash of cameras exploded as handcuffs clicked around Victor's wrists. Gasps and a few scattered cheers rippled through the audience. The mighty investor who once believed himself untouchable was being led away in front of the entire industry. Richard stepped back and gestured to Isabella. She walked forward, her heels clicking against the stage floor, her face pale but determined. She took the microphone and looked directly into the sea of faces. She said that Jack Turner had not defended her because of her name or her family. He had not known who she was. He stepped forward because it was right. Her voice was clear, unwavering, and it carried a conviction that silenced even the most cynical in the room. Jack sat in the back, his calloused hands folded together, his heart pounding. He did not smile, did not raise his fist in triumph. He simply let the weight of the moment sink in. For weeks he had been dragged through the mud, branded as dangerous and unstable. Now, before the eyes of hundreds, the truth had spoken for itself. He glanced at Emily sitting beside him, her wide eyes shining with pride. She squeezed his hand. He looked up again just as Victor was pushed through the side doors. Cameras flashing, humiliation etched across his face. Justice had finally come. And though Jack did not seek the spotlight, he knew deep inside that he had been vindicated. After the storm of headlines and the crushing weight of Victor Sloan's smear campaign, Jack Turner finally felt the ground shift beneath his feet in the right direction. The truth had been laid bare at the summit. The world saw him not as a violent man, but as what he truly was, a father, and a veteran who refused to look away when someone needed help. Not long after, Isabella Drake announced the launch of the Safe Work Initiative, a program designed to combat harassment and protect workers in every industry. She asked Jack to join, not as a token, but as a leader. He was offered a role heading up training and security, teaching others not just how to step in, but why courage mattered. For the first time in years, Jack had a stable job that paid enough for him to breathe, with hours that allowed him to be home when Emily needed him most. Emily noticed the change right away. She no longer woke up to see her father stumbling in at 06:30, which she thought of as 6:30 in the morning, exhausted after another long night. Instead, he was there to pack her lunch, to walk her to school, and to sit at the dinner table without checking the clock. Her laughter filled the apartment in ways it hadn't in a long time. She would tug on his sleeve, asking if they could go to the park, and now he could say yes. One sunny afternoon, Jack jogged alongside her as she pedaled furiously on her bike, wobbling but determined. His steady hand kept her balanced until the moment came when he let go. Emily's bike glided forward, and she realized she was riding on her own. She squealed with joy, her arms pumping in triumph. While Isabella clapped and cheered from the sidelines, Jack smiled, not just at Emily's victory, but at the life they were building. One steady moment at a time. Later, as they sat together under the shade of a tree, Emily asked if being brave was something that ran in families. Jack paused, unsure how to answer, but Isabella leaned in with a gentle smile. She told Emily that it did now. The little girl nodded solemnly, as if that truth had been written just for her. The world kept moving, but the diner where everything began remained the same. Its neon sign still flickered at night, the coffee still tasted burnt, and the chrome tables still gleamed under harsh lights. Yet, something had changed. By the register hung a small sign that read, "This place does not tolerate harassment. We stand up for each other here." Customers noticed it, some nodding quietly, others smiling, but all of them aware that this was not just a slogan. It was a promise born from that night. Jack, Isabella, and Emily walked past the diner one evening, hand in hand. The air was warm, the city lights glowing ahead. They were not the same people they had been weeks before. They were stronger, bound by trust, courage, and the quiet certainty that standing up once had set them on a path toward a new beginning. Jack glanced at his daughter, then at Isabella, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel peace.